I, of course, again, for the record, state that I think that the global warming CO2 theory is nonsense. And those of us who have found ourselves in combat on this, quote, global warming issue, realize that there's more to the energy argument and the energy issue than simply trying to say that we're not going to put more CO2 in the air, which I might add, as we all know, over the Earth's history, there has been many times more CO2 in the air at wonderful times in the world's history. But beside that, back to energy, and that is, those of us who have that disagreement don't disagree that we need to be developing our energy resources to the maximum degree so that America can benefit both in economically and in terms of our national security. With that, I have been very active in supporting various alternative energy sources rather than just oil and gas. And I happen to have bought on to the theory that we should be moving towards electrifying America, that we should be looking at electric energy as a source of transportation, et cetera. With that said, I have also been dismayed that quite often those people who are supposedly dedicated for the global warming theory or whatever motivates them to producing clean electricity, that in California at least, they seem to be putting up roadblocks, and I think this is true in other places as well, to actually putting in place solar energy installations. And I have a bill, H.R. 964, which would facilitate the development and the building of solar installations in the desert. And what apparently we have now is 205, or at least over 200 applications at the Bureau of Land Management that have been sitting there for years for people who would like to build solar plants in the middle of the desert, but can't get the Bureau of Land Management to give them a permit to build. Now, something's wrong there. Something's wrong with that equation, and I'd like to ask the panel, what's going on here? I mean, are we committed to it to the point that lizards and insects and their habitat is more important than developing the energy? Or can we say that, yes, developing electric solar power in the desert is worth eliminating the habitat for a small number of insects and lizards, who can then scurry someplace else, I might add. So I'd like to ask the panel that. What about siting of solar plants and other alternative plants as well, I might add?
The issue of siting these kinds of plants is being very interesting in California for a lot more reasons than just that. Among other things, even if they get sited, nobody's going to be able to build transmission to them. The question...
I will have to tell you that I am personally involved with several sightings that the transmission lines go right through and is right there. So I'd like to say that, yes, that is true. We don't have electric lines or any way to get it onto the grid in many of these, but in many of them they do have access to the grid and access to transmission lines. Go ahead. Sorry.
But if this is the case, this has been the question that's always had to be looked at. We've only relatively recently in our history became aware that much of what we do does have consequences for the environment. The real question is always a rule of reason. How do you value the environmental amenities, the value of species biodiversity, against the value of the power? Is there, in fact, an easier way to get it, a cheaper way to get it, a cleaner way to get it? Those are the kinds of questions that is a combination of markets and regulation. The question of how the solar units are getting built, how they're being financed, are they getting some sort of subsidies, tax breaks, questions like those? You've got to look at all those aspects of them. It may well be that these are intrinsically uneconomic and you wouldn't want them in the desert were it not for certain special treatment that they get.